Hello Podanistas and Poddies. Welcome along to day number 1. So you should have received everything you need in an email from me. That's this video, the tasks for today which are laid out in the email, and this PDF handout which I will go through in a second. I'm also going to be live streaming in the group from 7 p.m. UK time, where I'll be talking about podcast format. You can ask me any questions in a comment, so I look forward to answering those. So let's just have a quick look at this PDF. Today on day 1, you're going to be going right from level 0. You're going to be choosing your podcast format, if you haven't done already, of course. You're going to develop an audience avatar which will help you establish exactly who it is that you're speaking to and who your audience really are. And also, more importantly, I'm going to ask you to make a commitment in the group. Make a commitment about your launch date. It's really important that you do this because a podcast is a project where you can keep saying, oh, I'm going to start one, and push it further and further back. And before you know it, 6 months down the line, you will not have launched your podcast. So commit to a launch date and work towards that date. Don't move it, and we will hold you accountable in the group. Exciting, eh? Anyway, let's just have a quick look at this PDF. So I've listed down 3 formats here, podcast formats, that are typically the most popular or most used formats that are around. So we've got a solo show format. This will take you the least amount of time commitment. Now, just to also add here, all the hours that I've allocated for each of these formats, this is an assumption that you will be doing everything yourself. So if you're to outsource editing, etc., if you have a VA to do a few of the things, then the commitment will be much less, probably half, I would say. So anyway, solo show, that is a format where it's just literally you and a microphone, like this. You'll just top and tail it with an intro and an outro, do some light editing perhaps, and then you will put it out there. So that's quite simple. It's the simplest format. However, it can be the most boring for your listeners if you're doing that week in, week out. So I would probably recommend that you try to mix things up a little bit and try to add a few interviews in there if possible. Then there's the most popular format at the moment, which is the interview format. Now that takes a moderate amount of time, as you've got to organise guests, etc. And some guests don't turn up and you have to find alternatives. So that can sometimes take a bit of time. Even if you do use a scheduling software, that is going to take a bit of time finding and chasing guests as well as recording them. The next format is a narrative format show, which is like This American Life. It takes a lot of time. There's multiple interviews in there. It's a documentary style. Really, you need a team of people behind you if you're going to execute this properly. As much as it's really interesting for your audience, it's a lot of work and you need a bit of dollar to get yourself going with that one. Just to quickly go through, how long should an episode be? This is a question that I get asked quite a lot. If you're to do a solo show, then you need to keep it snappy. Like I say, your audience, it's quite a big ask to get that person to listen to just one voice for, say, an hour. No matter how interesting the content is, if it goes on for an hour, then the ear is going to drift off and that person is going to be concentrating on something else pretty quickly. So I would keep it short and snappy, keep the content short and snappy, and do a podcast episode between 15 to 20 minutes. For a single interview format podcast, so you just have one guest on, I would recommend 25 to 30 minutes. A narrative podcast or a multiple interview podcast, I would recommend 25 to 60 minutes. Also, if you're really pushed for time, I would consider creating a season of around 6 to 8 episodes. So that way you're not committed to every week or every fortnight or every month to get an episode out there. Just do a batch of 8 episodes in a season, maybe one a week, and that's your season, and then you can just have a little break in between. It'll just help give you a bit of headspace as well, and to reevaluate just really what works with your podcast. So it's definitely worth considering. So, creating your audience avatar. So just take a look at this here. It's just like if you are starting a new business and you're wanting to create an avatar of your ideal customer. It's just exactly the same concept. So if you can work your way down there and really establish who your audience are. I often find this is a really good exercise when I am recording, understanding who my audience are and really imagining talking to that audience. It kind of, I don't know, it comes across over the microphone definitely, and it certainly helps me use the right language to that right kind of audience. Also, another thing which is certainly worth doing is creating a short synopsis of your podcast. It's just really a few lines of exactly what this podcast is going to be and its treatment. And when I say treatment, how long it will be, who the guests will be, where it's going to be based, etc. As you can see, I've put an example there so you get an idea. So just jot down your ideas, just get a short synopsis together. It's also really good if you are trying to pitch to guests, especially high profile guests, and they go, well, what's it going to be about? I just want to know. So you've got that snippet straight away that you can just copy and paste into an email. So it's pretty handy to have that. And finally, make that commitment. So please do put this in the Facebook group using the hashtag AOP in the group. Your name, and I'm going to create a solo/interview/narrative podcast, so choose which one, which is for your audience and will be about subject, and I'm going to publish my first episode, this is the important bit, on and put your date. Now, I would recommend probably that you should set aside 3 to 4 weeks of getting everything together ready for launch. So please do bear that in mind when you are committing to a date. It's recommended generally when you first send your podcast to iTunes that you have 3 to 4 episodes already there for your listeners to listen to. It just gives them a flavour of what you're about and what your podcast is going to be about. So that's going to take a bit of extra time, as well as obviously spreading the word about it. Also, really just commit, it's just going to be great to follow everyone's progress. So please do jump in the group and commit. Enjoy going through this. And if you've got any problems, please do email me, emma@artofpodcast.com. And I will see you tomorrow.